fun we have together. Even though we have 4 kids who drive us nuts every now and then, we can find time to enjoy each other and remind each other that we need to continue to have fun as well.
I would say balance. So I'm the planner. I'm the person who holds the calendar. But at the same time, it gets to be a little bit of this, well, we got to be here and this. And so he's the person to help provide a little calm that I need. I think that's super important. And we're honest with each other. I mean, I definitely tell him, where I'm like, hey, we need to check ourselves, in terms of our relationship and as parents too. I think that's important. So, and we've actually learned to do that. We didn't always know how to not necessarily be honest, but we had our first at 19. So, we had to grow into, not necessarily that we weren't dishonest again, but we just had to grow into our adulthood, so to speak. But okay, next question is, how have things changed now that you all are parents? And this could be, you think about either first-time parents, or how has it changed going from 1 to 2, but just talk about your experiences. And Jasmine, I'm gonna go with you because I saw your eyes get big, so I think it sounds like you got something to say.
Okay, so our first daughter, when we had our first child, it was kind of like, oh, this is great. And I didn't expect all of the cluster feeding and all of the physical aspect that went with the breastfeeding in the beginning. Like, I was so completely tired. And it was like, I didn't expect this. And for me, it was kind of like, he don't understand, because he like, oh, you all right? And I'm like, but I'm tired. You don't understand. Like, I'm about to pull my hair out. I'm so tired. And then when we had our son, it was kind of the same thing, because our daughter demanded a lot of attention because she went from being the only child to now we have this baby who came home. Granted, she loves him, but I had mommy unto myself, and we had to learn to balance, her and her having time with me, and then me trying to be mommy to both of them and wife. And it was a big adjustment from 1 to 2. She was going through her sleep regressions, and then they were going through them at the same time. And it was very, very challenging for me, because I started to just kind of disconnect from him a little bit. And a lot. Okay, I disconnected from him a lot. And then, because, the births were very different. The first birth was a whole different experience than the second one. So the second one, I think I had a lot more physical trauma than I expected. So it kind of caused me to kind of just be more distant in a way, and I think it was hard for me to adjust, and I don't know how he felt, but he can chime in when,
Okay. So this is what I said. We met for 4.5 years, as we said before, but we met 6 months before we got married.
Yeah.
So the turnaround for us meeting each other, getting married was very quickly, and then by the end of
our anniversary,
before the first year was up, we were pregnant.
Yeah.
And so it was just very, very quick, everything. And from being us just by ourselves, it was great. And then introducing our daughter, we were very excited. And then when we found out how much sleep we were losing, as she said, she began getting very irate with the amount of sleep that she was losing. And I told her, I understand, because as a man, I'm like, I need to provide for my family. So I'm working longer hours. I'm doing more things, trying to make sure my family is secure. And our housing situation, make sure that everything is good, And me personally, I was there for her emotionally, but that time that she needed from me for that first child, I wasn't fully there, because I think it was a week and a half after she gave birth, I'm back at work. I got to make this money. I got to do what I got to do for y'all. And then with the second child, I was like, okay, I can't do that again. So I made sure I set up things so I could actually take at least 8 weeks of paternity leave to be there for you all, because I need a connection with my daughter and my son. And then now you're breastfeeding 1.5 kids, because my daughter was kind of weaned, not really, to provide the support in the home for that. So the dynamic was very different with our second born, our son. She disconnected from me a lot because she wanted to make sure that she was being a mother to both our kids, and that's taxing on anyone when you feel like you're not doing what you need to do as a mother. And then me and her had a conversation. Was like, hey, we still have husband and wife duties that we need to attend to, and duties in the house too. So it was definitely adjustment period where every week we're finding something new that we needed to talk about and figure out how to handle. So it is still going on. You know, things change, especially as they get older. Our daughter's getting returned in 3 in 2 weeks. So, you know, with every day there's something new that our daughter throws at us. So it's constantly adjusting and changing how we do things in the house. You know, so yeah, it's been a ride.
It's been interesting.
I love it. What about you all, Alicia?
He had to go get the baby something to eat. But I think the biggest change for me, I got married at 32. I lived alone for 13 years before I got married. So getting married, living with somebody, then having a baby not too long after was, I felt like I had zero stability at that point. Like every day something was different, just like the Roys. I wasn't getting sleep. I never knew what no sleep was by not having my first child until I was 30, a week before I turned 35. So I always got sleep all night, every night. Like there was no reason not to. So no sleep is like drives you crazy somewhat or a lot. And that probably was my largest adjustment. And then having to be fully responsible for another life all day, every day. Because I babysat a lot. I had a child later than most of my family. So all the kids have been to my house for sleepovers, fun stuff. It was really cute to send kids home. And then it was like, oh, I have this baby that can't go anywhere and he's breastfed. So he really can't go anywhere. Like, I felt crazy. How did parenting change things for you?
Well, this was my second child, but my first child was born when I was in prison. So when I got out of prison, he was 10 months old. So I didn't get to be there to see the whole birthing process and actually raise him, because I was still kind of young and in the streets, so I wasn't actually there. I was there, but I wasn't there because I was still young, really didn't know how to be a parent. Versus this time with being married and in the house, it's like that's like, man, I give props to men who stay at the house, man. Like I said, I can understand how back in the day they would just leave it, like, man, because it's a lot. It's about being a real man. I mean, I understand because a lot of people are very immature, and you have to be mature to stay in that house, to stay in that situation. One, like I said, it's a whole nother being you got to take care of. And also, really, then you got your wife, you know, you want to take care of her, too, because you got to watch out for her. And then with Alicia dealing with the postpartum, which I had no idea about when it's happening, it's like trying to watch out for her. Then it's got a gift and a curse. I got hurt at work. I hurt my foot. No, I hurt my foot, so I was off work for disability, basically to be there with her, to go through this child with her. Then I ended up getting hurt again. So for almost this whole life, I've been off work on disability. So I've been able to be and see that process of being there with your child and with your wife to help out, man. But it's a whole nother ball game for me. It's like, man.
I love it. Stephanie, what would you all say?
We had kind of a interesting situation, I guess you could say. I lived in Georgia with him because he's from Georgia, and I lived there for less than a year, and then we got pregnant during that year, and a whole bunch of stuff happened. I'm like, okay, I'm out. So I came back home to Nebraska, but so he missed the entire end of the pregnancy almost. He came back for like a couple weeks in month 6, and then he was gone again and came back for the birth. But so he missed most of the pregnancy, and I had to do that basically by myself. And then when she was born, he was here for a month. So we didn't get a whole lot of time before she got here to really reconnect, because we had kind of disconnected for a while. So we didn't get a whole lot of time before she got here to reconnect. And then all of a sudden we have a human being that needs everything from us, everything from me. He was only here for a month, that first month, and then he was back in Georgia for another 6 months. So it changed everything for me, because I'm 34. So I knew I wanted children, but I don't think I ever realized what all that meant. Like, because no matter how much you want children, there's no manual, or there's not enough blog posts in the world to tell you what that means. It's daunting. So I had to be basically what amounted to a single mom for her first 6 months of life. And then all of a sudden, after being a single person and then a short relationship and then a baby and then a single mom, he comes back when she was 6 months old, and I have to learn how to be in a relationship and a parent all at the same time, and living with someone who I had only lived with for a short time all over again. So it was a lot of relearning, a whole lot of adjusting, and trying to figure out, I think we were both trying to figure out how to really be a couple when we're both so used to being apart. So it was, I think we're still trying to figure that out in some cases. We still have a lot of individual things that we keep trying to stay individual when we really are still working on together. So quite the transition. I do not recommend. Now that I said I don't recommend.
I know, right? You made that sound horrible.
But I do like him. Like.
Just do a little clear on that one a little bit, because she just made that sound so horrible. But we were also, she lived in Nebraska all her life. I was in Georgia all my life. Mm-hmm. So we met online. So of course, meeting up in person, you know, it's like, you know, I hope I ain't getting catfished or nothing like that. So we didn't really, so in the time when she did, again, some things happened. She moved to Georgia. When she moved to Georgia, she stayed, but she ultimately wanted to come home and have the baby here. Me as a male, this is my first child. So first thing I learned already automatically is expensive. Children are expensive. Like ultimately, that was my very first thing I know. I was like, ooh. Because I'm 29. She's older than me. I was really waiting until I was like 35 before I had my first one. But God had other plans for me on that.
Thank God, I'd be 41.
Ultimately, it was an interesting transition, because I did miss part, because when she decided she wanted to move back to Nebraska and have the baby, you know, I know for a fact. Well, I ain't gonna say I know for a fact, but I do understand that a mother wants to have her, especially a mother for a first-time mother, wants her first birthing to be where she wants to be. Where she wants the nest, she wants the nest. So there wasn't a lot I can do in that situation, I felt. So I decided, I knew for a fact I would have to uproot my time to move to Nebraska. So the reason for the whole back and forth traveling was just because I was still working for the state of Georgia at the time. And so before I made my transition, I didn't want to be, you know, just move up here and then I have nothing. Yay, I'm here for my daughter, but you know, that's it. You gotta give me about a couple first month. Got you covered. After that, we might need some time. So it really does come, since this was my first child, it is a very emotional, different experience altogether finance, yes, but emotional is a totally different, because I never thought I can love someone as much as I love this little girl. Like my daughter.
That question comes later.
No, that's part of the question.
I love it. I love
Did you
it.
even answer the question?
No, you did. That was perfect. That was great. For us, and we're transplants to Minnesota from Chicago. So we are college kids trying to do our own thing. And then all of a sudden I'm pregnant and I'm like, oh,
What?
I'm 19.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, oh, snap, what are we going to do? So I think for us, it was, I don't know, it was different. And it was us trying to figure out how we can make this work for us, being 19-year-olds. So we didn't really, and I mean, so we're high school sweethearts. And so we didn't know, I did not know, I'm not going to speak for him. Yeah, I knew that I wanted to have kids, and I'm in college, and I know I have these aspirations and goals and things, but trying to figure that out, and then at 19 having a baby, and then we had him early, so he was 7 weeks premature.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, so now I got to figure out what I'm gonna do in college. I got a premature baby. What in the world? And so I thought, okay, we went back to Chicago to have our baby, but um, I stayed in Chicago while he came back to Minnesota to finish out his sophomore year in college. So I was like, I'd rather be with family, and his family did help too, and my family. I was like, okay, I need that support because I don't know what I'm doing with this tiny little baby who came home at 3 pounds, 13 ounces. I was like, I need some help. So, but we had a relationship. Again, we're 19-year-olds, but I think that we worked really hard to communicate, and I would visit him and he would come home and visit the baby. And then the next year we moved in together.
I would visit you too.
That's what I said. You came home.
You said visit the baby.
I mean, he came home to visit me too. And then the baby and I went up to Minnesota with him, and then I re-enrolled back in the university to finish school. And so we had to learn how to live together. But, you know, it was new, it was different, but I wanted it so bad that I was like, okay, I got to work at it. You know, like I got to make sure we're communicating. And I actually went to therapy. I used free services because I was like, I don't know how to, if I'm saying something wrong, you know, do I just blurt it out or do I just go, you know, how do I do this? So I enrolled in a free university therapy session that I did throughout my sophomore year when I came back, which helped. So what do you think?
Wow. A lot.
So how have things changed?
So realistically, same thing you're saying, right? So we were trying to figure out how to grow up together, basically, right? And we were together, we're trying to figure out what you and I really mean.
Talk about immature, yeah.
And then we dropped the baby in on it too. So
yeah.
It was, how do we really connect as people, as grown adults, right? And then it was like, oh, now we got somebody that like depends on us. So going back to something that was said a little bit earlier, it's, you know, I went into, how do I make this work? I got to figure out, is this the major I'm in right now originally? I'm like, that has like grad school, it has like fellowship. I was like, I don't even know if
and we need money now.
I was like, I got bills today. so I went through a whole, like, okay, here's my plan thing. I'm gonna change majors, but I figure out how can I change majors and still graduate in the same amount of time. So I went, again, plan mode, figuring that out. So it all worked out. We're still together. Our son, originally our oldest son, has been doing very well. The one thing I'll say about moving from 1 to 2 kids was our first son, even though he was born premature. He, happy, healthy, all that. And I was in the mind frame of, what do people complain about? Kids are easy. This dude was like, he do stuff by himself. He was so motivated to get stuff done. It was as I'm trying to remember the term my mother says, but it was that sucker move where he was trying to get a brother or sister. So, so when his brother came, oh my God, it was like 180, trying to figure out, are y'all really siblings? So it was going from somebody that was, you can give him a book and he'll be done. He'll be sitting around with that for an hour. I can actually get some stuff done for work or school or whatever, and Kristen could do the same thing. And his brother was not that same way. So it definitely changes between kids. We learned early that all kids are different and require different things. So it was.
But I think even it has that we've gone from 1 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4. It's been an adjustment because I'm tired and I've only gotten more tired. I don't know if it's because I'm older, if it's the 4 kids, or a combination of the 4 or the 3. But it's hard. And I think our relationship, I think that I said this on when we were speaking Thursday, but it gets the first 6 months is so difficult because I'm so tired and I'm trying to breastfeed, and then now I have 3 kids to take care of, and so just trying to communicate and make sure that we're being honest about my feelings. That is hard, but it rolls into postpartum depression, and how does that start? And I would say for me, I had the baby blues with number 2, 3, and 4, but I think for me with our first one, having a baby early and then having to leave the hospital without my baby for, all of this time, and I'm pumping and I'm like, what am I pumping for? He's not even here, So that was that. And I'm young, right? I'm 19. So my whole experience was unconventional as it relates to having a baby, because I think my baby's gonna be term, and then we do whatever. But now, first of all, I found out I was pregnant at 20 weeks. No, 22.
It was
It was like
20.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like 4.5 months, right? So you think, oh, I'm 4.5 months, and then all of a sudden I have this baby at 33 weeks. So I'm trying to get over the shock that I'm pregnant, number one, right? And then go, okay, I'm still in school, and then the transition to back home with everybody else, and then I have this, I'm not feeling well. I go to the doctor, they go, oh, well, you have preeclampsia, you gotta, put you into labor, induced labor, and then I have this baby. I only had a good 13 weeks. So then I have this baby, and the baby's carted off, and I'm like, where are you going? Wait, and then I can't get up and see the baby because my blood pressure is too high. And then I'm discharged, and now my baby, I was just like all of these different things, like boom, 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 boom. So I was able to overcome that without any therapy, but I do think that it is important to have, especially when you need it. But so how have you all, and I'll start with you, Stephanie, how have you all dealt with postpartum depression, or what advice do you have as it relates to us mamas trying to figure it out, and understand that dads get it too? So I don't want to negate the fact that he was also going through something, seeing his baby too. But then, how do you all work together to mitigate that and ensure that you all are mentally healthy for yourselves first, and then your baby?
Well, I will begin by saying I have dealt with mental health issues since high school. So from 2004, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar depression, and then all of the following years, some stops here and there for new diagnoses. I tell people the DSM-4 is my autobiography. So I've got a lot of issues. So since I've been dealing with mental health stuff in the first place, my care team, the midwives, my psychologist, my therapist, were all like, we should prepare for you probably having postpartum depression. Like, we're just gonna put that in the bag too, and we'll handle that as well. So I was already on part of having bipolar depression and some of the other things that I have. You think that you can handle things that you can't actually handle. So I would be like, okay, I'm perfectly fine. I don't need these medications. I feel great. And I'd go off for long periods of time, and then I'll go completely off the rails and have to start back up. But when I got pregnant, I was like, I probably can't do that anymore. So when I got back here, I made sure to set up having my psychologist, having my therapist, letting my doctor know that what medications I was on, making sure the entire team knew everything. Because if they don't know the whole story, how can they help you with part of it? So that's tip number one. So after the baby, I thought I was fine. Like, I was still on my medication. They made sure that it was safe for pregnancy and safe for breastfeeding. They made sure it didn't contraindicate or go against anything else that they were going to give me. And I went for a little bit of time thinking that everything was cool. Like, I don't have depression now. I am cured. A few weeks in, after he had left, I started feeling less, I guess you could say. That was like indication number one. All of a sudden, even though I was really excited to have this baby, I started feeling extremely overwhelmed. I didn't know how I was going to handle anything all of a sudden. I went from the super planner to extraordinarily anxious about everything. It was almost like falling off a cliff. And I didn't know. I thought it was just me not planning well enough. And if I had planned, I wouldn't feel this way. So I kept going in a mindset of, it'll be fine, I can handle this. And then I called my therapist. I'm like, I'm feeling this way, but I'm pretty sure it's just being a new mom. She's like, you need to come in. So I started going back to therapy after she was born, and we realized through a couple talks that I was actually experiencing postpartum depression, which didn't appear like I thought it was going to appear. And we handled it from there with the medication, with therapy, with learning how to be a new mom in the first place, all at the same time, but with help. There is zero way to do it without help. You can't. I was going to church with my mom. You can't just pray your way through it. Like, I know there's a lot of mindsets. There's just like, go to Jesus. He is, what do they say? He's the doctor and he's your lawyer. And I understand all of that. I've been in church my whole life, but Jesus can't prescribe medication. The pharmacy don't take prayer. So you have to go, you have to get help. It's extremely important.
Yeah, knocking on that is around the time. I will say, when it comes to mental health issues, I guess you could say I was raised pretty Southern on that a little bit, because a lot of it I didn't have a full understanding of. Even me myself, I didn't even know what I was even going through. And I know when she was going through it, especially when the time she was going through it when I was away, because again, since I was in Georgia still working, I knew she had to be going through a tough time. And it's a hard thing, especially for us males. I would say fathers, especially first-time fathers, don't really know what to do in that situation. You feel like you have to be a rock in the storm. Not even a rock. You gotta be that glacier that took down the Titanic. You just gotta be that strong at that point, because when you have your significant other who's really going through something, it's hard, because I know me myself, I'm battling something. As a first-time father who's not there with my child, I'm missing a whole lot of cues. I'm missing a lot of mouth keys that I just really do wish I was there to see. Most of it I'm looking through my cell phone, video chats and stuff like that. Pictures. Those are great aids, but they're not remedies. But I know for a fact I couldn't crack under pressure. I can't, because she needs me to be strong. So when she's breaking down and she's crying, she needs to talk it out and just know that I'm there. I know for a fact I have to be there as strong as possible for her, because she needs it more than ever, especially someone who's taking care of my child. If she's in a good mental state, then the baby's going to be in a good mental state. Jay is happy. She's like the most happiest, rambunctious little girl you will ever meet.
It's amazing.
She's Tommy Pickle from Rugrats. Like, oh God. So it really is that point where you do understand that though I may not understand what she personally is going through, I know I have to be there and be strong enough to handle that pressure.
I love it. So then, Jasmine, can you talk a little bit about, as a parent, postpartum depression and other things like that?
Okay, so for me, we were just talking about this earlier. I believe I kind of had postpartum triggered by other things with my daughter. You know, because I was happy, like, oh, like I'm a mommy, you know, and I think it was a whole lot of different triggers that kind of triggered the postpartum every so often. And like for me, it would come in waves. Like it would be like really bad days, and then I would have really good days, and then I would have really, really bad days. And it was kind of like a fluctuation for a couple of, like, the first maybe 6 months. Like Stephanie was saying, it was like weird. Like, why am I feeling like this? And then with our son, I realized that I really did, like, I was really kind of going through a lot of the postpartum things. Like, I cried a lot. I was very emotional about any and everything. I took offense to a lot of things, like suggestions that he would make a lot. Like, it would just, like, I would just be like, why are you saying like that? Or I would just get completely, like, defensive if he was just suggesting something. And I realized, you know, now in hindsight, that I was kind of really going through a postpartum kind of thing. You know, his birth was very traumatic. Like, I had a lot of things that happened after he was born, and I was physically just completely spent after he was born. And it was like, you know, again, like, balancing the 1 to the 2 was very, very hard. It was a very hard adjustment, at least for me. Like, I felt inadequate a lot of times, and I felt like, hey, I'm doing it all. And I had to learn to communicate, because he would tell me, like, hey, like, you bugging, like, what's going on? Like, talk to me. Like, he was very, hey, let's talk. Like, hey, what's going on? What are you feeling? You know, because I didn't go and get medication, and I didn't go to a doctor and tell a doctor, like, hey, I'm feeling like this. I thought that was something that you just dealt with as a parent. Like, I didn't know that was actually an issue. Like, you shouldn't be feeling like this so often, because it was so often that it was just kind of like, hey, something's not right here. And sorry. And I think, you know, he would call me out a lot on it, because I would be very distant. I would completely just disconnect from him, and he'd be like, what's going on? I'm like, nothing. He's like, no, it's something. And I had to communicate, and he had to really, like, probe it out of me. But he was there. He was very supportive. Like when I got to the point where I'm like, hey, like, and I'm freaking out, like, hey, like, la, 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 and he'd be like, hey, all right, so let me do this. Like, okay. So what we did start to do was on Saturdays, like we alternate Saturdays, and he would give me the morning. Like, hey, you get the morning, you could do whatever you want from this time to this time. And we did it, and I was like, oh my God, just to be away from kids and just have a moment to myself was just amazing. And then it was like, soon as that you know, my time was over, I felt like this burst of energy, and we were able to do things around the house, and we were able to kind of communicate and spend time with the kids, and it worked for us. Like, that's kind of what we had to learn to do, and we had to really learn to communicate with one another about what we were feeling.
For me, I being a minister in my church, and then having a background in mental health, I worked at a mental health agency for a good 6 years. I was able to pick up on the signs, even though Jasmine's thing is deny. She just didn't want to admit it. I'm like, babe, I think something is going on that's beyond our control. Like, we should really talk to someone. We should talk to our pastor about it. We should go see someone. She's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. So I'm like, okay. And this is when I really realized that I needed to spend more time with her. And my daughter was, she's not gonna say it, but I'm going to say it. My mother-in-law came to stay with us because she's like, I just want my mom around. I need the support. With her mother being around, the support came, but then also came a lot of nitpicking. You're not doing this. You need to do this better. And that's when the postpartum really started to set in. And I had to come home and have this big argument with my mother-in-law to protect my wife and her sanity. And I had to realize that, you know, running for the church, running for work, doing all this stuff to make sure my family's good, I'm actually neglecting my family, which is actually my ministry, is my family. Being the priest of my home, I need to make sure that my wife and my child both are good mentally, physically, emotionally, and then leave the financial part to God, because if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, he'll handle that part. So I really took the time out to address her mental and emotional needs and protecting her from the outside triggers that I could protect her from, because things do happen. You know, your child, they're not going to go to sleep some nights. They're going to stay up at 2 o'clock in the morning and then wake up at 6 a.m. full of energy. That's just going to happen. You can't stop that, you know. But that I could prevent, I did. And then when our second child came, I don't think it was so much of postpartum depression as it was postpartum trauma, because she almost died on the table. She almost bled out on the table. So that was very traumatizing for both of us, especially after the 6-week mark and I was ready. She wasn't, because she was traumatized still. And so having to be able to be there and comfort her through those transition periods, and her lashing out at me for nothing I did, but just staying consistent with her and let her know, hey, be mad at me all you want to, I ain't going nowhere. We both created these kids. It's not just my fault. But, you know, literally just holding her hand every step of the way, making sure that she's good, making sure when she needed that time, she had that time. Like, she's really undervaluing that. What I would do is, on Saturday, like she said, the moment the kids would wake up, I would take them to the living room. And I was like, hey, sneak up the front door, just bounce, go shopping, go to the spa, go get a massage, do whatever you want to do. Be back here at noon, because these kids are going to drive me up a wall. But go take that time to yourself. Get that self-care that you need so that you can be the mother and the wife that we need you to be. So that's something that we really focused on, was make sure that both of our sanity was intact so that we could be there for one another when we needed it.
And it made us better parents, and it helped our relationship a little bit too. So, yeah.
I love it. Thank you. Alicia, can you share?
Sure. So I actually found out later I was dealing with antepartum depression. So I was depressed during my pregnancy. I didn't know that was a thing. I kind of thought I was just worried because I had such a history with pregnancy loss that I thought I was just maybe a little anxious because of just not being sure what would happen with the baby. But while I was pregnant, I found out my grandmother was terminally ill, and that's who raised me. So that was a kind of sad thing. I wasn't really happy at work. It was just a lot going on. So I don't feel like my son came into the happiest of environments. And so I actually cried really bad the first day I got home. They let me go home a day early because I had him 2 days after Christmas. So they were trying to be nice, like spend time with your family for the holidays. I walked in the front door and dropped everything and boo-hoo. Like, why would I leave the hospital and come home with this baby? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why would I leave help? Like, why would I leave other people that can help me figure this thing out? And so once that started to happen, after that first day, I just felt myself getting more anxious and more sad and more depressed. And it got to the point where I was having really dark thoughts. Like one night, around 2 months, my son started the purple crying, which I didn't know what that was at the time. I know now thanks to this group, but prior to that, I didn't know what it was. And so it just stressed me out and I felt like a bad mom. And I got to the point where I started thinking about hurting my son. And so that's what made me talk to my doctor, because I'm like, I know I don't want to hurt him. I know that I wouldn't hurt him, but why is this even crossing my mind? Because it seems really strange to consider hurting your child. So I went to the doctor, talked to him. He told me I had postpartum depression symptoms. He prescribed me a medication. I was anti-medication because I didn't know anything about it. I come from a family of addictive behavior, so I was kind of scared to be addicted to the meds. It's not that I have a problem with medication in general. I was just scared of it for myself. So I didn't take it, and I just kept trying to battle. And my husband was trying to help me as much as he could, but I didn't fully know how to explain what was going on. As honest as I am, it felt very weird to tell my husband, hey, I'm thinking about hurting our child. It felt like something I couldn't say out loud. And I know he wouldn't judge me, but it still didn't feel right. So he actually had to go back to work 2 days after I had the baby. The job he is at didn't have any type of paternal leave. So, no pay leave at least. And I mean, who can really afford to not get a check for 6 or 8 weeks? And so I would just be at home all day crying. He would walk in the door, I would bust out crying, give him the baby. Like, so he's essentially trying to hold us both, trying to make sure the baby's okay, trying to make sure I'm okay. And then I'll let him talk more about the effects on him and then how he feels he supported me, because we see that very differently.
Well, I mean, I can be emotionless, and it's only because I feel like, hey, let's get past this. I mean, she hates when I say this is only for a season. I tell her everything is for a season. I said let's toughen it up, and I tend to treat her like I would treat myself in that situation, and that's when I started to learn I was being so not as sensitive as she wanted me to be, because I didn't know anything about postpartum. Like my first son, I was young. Really didn't pay his mother any attention for real. I was doing me. But to be there with it firsthand and just like, wow, what's going on? Why are you crying? I'm just looking like, why are you crying? You were just talking crazy to me, right? So why are you crying? That's the thing. I just couldn't understand it. Like, man, you just cussed me out. Now you crying. I'm like, where was this tough person at? You know, I really couldn't split the two up. I was just thinking about like, man, I just came from working. I'm trying to make sure we got this roof over our head. And you over here acting crazy, man. What's going on? And then really finding out what's going on. It's like, wow, I guess I'm a jerk. You know, I really didn't know. But she has helped me to try to be more vulnerable. That's my word, that I'm learning to be more vulnerable. Just being more sensitive, you know, just open up. It's okay. Being a male to open up, being vulnerable is cool. But, you know, being raised how I was, that it wasn't. So as far as myself having postpartum, I don't know. I really don't know.
I think you're just tired.
Yeah, I probably was just tired, man. Like you said, working, getting up early. It's just, yeah, dealing with her. Then I was like, the side dude. I felt like, you know what I'm saying, the side dude, because the baby was in there. He in the bed. He everywhere. I can't get nothing. So it's just like, hey, man. Hey, babe, why you sleeping downstairs? I'm like, well, the little homie in my spot. I can't. And he tossing attorney, you know, I gotta get up. You know, I'm not about to deal with this. You know, that's it. That's
He
all I
still
got.
say he decided to do, actually.
Okay, so then that rolls into this, because how do we view intimacy, right? So it took two to tango, right? And so you have this being. How do you get back to, or do you get back to being intimate, and what does that look like for you all? And intimacy can be physical intimacy, or it could be some other way of connecting outside of physical touch. So I would say for us, it took a second, because I feel like the more children we had, the longer it took for me to recover, for me to even want to have sex, or even initiate it, was like, that's out of the question, because I'm not feeling like it. I'm a little tired, and my body's a little different. So then let's get creative and you know, I don't know, watch a movie or do something that would just ease my anxiety, and I guess soften my process around being intimate, because that was the last thing I was thinking of. But what do you have? And then 6 to 8 weeks, no, my hips hurt for like 4 months. I'm trying, you know, like, how am I just, this torpedo of a baby shot out. So how am I getting ready to try to be intimate? You know what I mean? I mean, mamas, you know, even if you had a C-section, or it doesn't matter which way it happened, your body has to heal. And I was like, this is not okay. I'm not going to do it. So I want you to talk about intimacy from your realm, but for me, it took a moment to even get my mind set around what that would look like, especially after baby 4.
Well, again, I'm saying it again, but we had a baby early, and so again, I
But
remember.
our 4th one was.
But I'm talking about the first. I'll tell the story quick. So the first one, we're in the hospital, and the doctor's like, yeah, so I'll see you in another 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and I just want to make sure you all aren't. I was like, wait.
You want to tell her?
I was like, wait, so we can't do nothing for 6 weeks? I was like, that's unheard of. Like, who is not trying to do something for 6 weeks? I said 6 weeks.
I was trying not to do something for 6 weeks.
So again, I was like, I didn't know. I'm just like, ain't no way. I'm like, no way. So anyway, I had to get through that myself after they explained. It was like, well, there's physical things that restrict you. I was like, oh.
Growth and maturity.
And again, I was, it was all about me at that point. I was trying to get past that. So I definitely after the first son, it was more of a shock, at least for me at that point. But when I came to the understanding of, there's the physical thing you got to get over, there's the mental pieces you got to get over. And so after that, I was more in line with, okay, we got to make sure that you're ready, physically, mentally, all that, emotionally, ready to jump back in. And it was
jump back in like it's a
jump back in. So it took a while. It took a while. I say with each child, I got better at it. It was still 6 weeks.
It was longer than 6 weeks. Okay. All right. So Jasmine, tell me what you're thinking.
Okay, so for me with our daughter, like, I think I lost like the libido like while I was still pregnant. I didn't want to be touched because I was going through a whole lot of physical changes the first time, and it was completely foreign to me. Like, what is this? I look crazy. I'm ugly. Like, I did not feel beautiful, although he told me I was beautiful every day. But like the physical change that I went through with my daughter, I was just like, don't touch me. I don't want to be touched. I don't feel sexy enough to be touched, kind of thing. And with my son, I think like he was saying, I went through such a traumatic birth with him that I didn't want to be touched. I was all for it, like right before he was born, like, hey, let's get him out, kind of thing. But after he was here, it was just like, nah, I'm good. I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep. Don't touch me. And then, as the other person was talking, how my son ended up in the bed very early because he had different issues when he was smaller, and I was scared to let him sleep in the bassinet. So he kind of took over our bed, and he was my boyfriend, essentially. So he felt like the side dude sometimes. He's sleeping on the couch and we in the room, and he used to feel some type of way. And I didn't initiate things. I just was like, I don't want to be touched. I'm too tired. I love you, but I don't want to be touched. And I had to really kind of sometimes really suck it up because I know my husband has needs. And it was just like, all right, let's get it over with, sort of thing. And he would call me out like, hey, like, you act like you're just like, hey, let's get this over with. And I had to be like, oh, that's not really what it is. Like, but it is kind of, because that's how I feel. Like, because I didn't have any like desire whatsoever to be touched. And it wasn't him. It was just the adjustment of it all. Me being mom of 2 kids, a toddler and a newborn, and just the adjustment of it all. Like, I had no libido. It was bad. Like, it was really, really bad. I talked to my doctor about that, because it was like, is this normal? Because it was just really weird how we would go months and months and months and months with me just not wanting to do anything. And he loves me, so.
So
Yeah.
this is what also before both kids were born, she was like, "Hey, let's do this."
Yeah,
I'm like, "But you're doing 2 weeks," and like me personally, I'm like, I don't want to put the baby in the head. Like, let's just be real. I was like, no, let's
get out.
But she was like, but you can't do anything for 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm like, all right, but I don't want to. My baby's in there, and so like it really freaked me out a little bit. And so with our daughter, right around that 2-month mark, she was like, okay, I'm good. We can start being intimate again. With our son, it was really, really difficult. And it was like, all right, he's gonna be in my bed. I'm gonna be out here playing 2K, so I'll fall asleep. And that's what I would do. I'll be out here playing Assassin's Creed, 2K, Call of Duty on my PS4. So I'm ready to fall asleep because, all right, you have another man in my bed. That's just what it's going to be. And we had to have an honest conversation about, okay, I'm not okay with this anymore. This has been going on for too long. We need to talk about this. And like, we haven't had sex in a month. She's like, it's been a month? I was like, yes, I counted. It's been 32 days exactly. And I was like, it's not that we need to have sex. I don't need that from you because I didn't marry you for that. But the conversation, the talking, when I walk in the door, I kiss, a random kiss, things like that began to spark intimacy back because it wasn't there. She didn't want to be touched. She was like, I'm touched out. I'm breastfeeding 2 kids that climb all over me. Like, just don't even look at me too long. Why are you looking at me? And I'm like, but I love you. And she was like, I don't want to hear it right now.
I love you
so. Talking about things to be intimate was huge. Starting to watch Netflix shows again with another, watching movies with another, telling her, our son can sleep by himself. You don't need to lay with him when he goes to sleep. You can come out here and be with me, and we can just watch a movie. And then those things began to open up the door to us being intimate again. It wasn't just like, boom, let's have sex. It was literally like the courting process all over again for us after our second child.
Love it. What about you all, Stephanie?
So I think we're the only ones that only have one kid. I think everybody else has more than one. So it's odd because we had in the second trimester, something went wrong. And the doctor was like, okay, you're on, what did she call it? She didn't call it bed rest, physical rest, I think it was. Something like that. You're on physical rest for about 4 weeks. I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, oh, that means no sex, no orgasm, no nothing. You need to chill because if you spark contractions, it can be bad. And we're like, oh. So that was like our introduction to what was to come with the 6 to 8 week thing. Then when she was born, the first month, he was here. Once we got to the 6 week, and then, so he missed the rest of the pregnancy, all of which time I was a little opposite from Jasmine. I felt glorious. Like my Google Photos were rocking. So he had lots of views. I felt amazing, but he wasn't there for that. So I didn't get any of it and no intimacy there. And then she was here, and obviously you can't do anything for 6 weeks. Once we got to that 6 to 8 week mark, he was in Georgia. So we still couldn't do anything. But even once he got back, we're 17 months in now, and I'm realizing that I have zero libido. Like it's gone. And it's not because I don't want to. I'm not sure how to describe it. It's like I know that I want to, but I don't feel the desire to. Like,
and I really do believe that just really does come down to it. Like, yeah, it was already started pretty early when they started saying, well, you're gonna have to put a pause on the cheeks. I'm not feeling that. No, sir. Please tell me you got some help here. No. So I will say it's one of those things where with intimacy, it's one of those things where I think now I do feel more comfortable now that I see that a lot of the other fathers dealt with the same thing. We don't own the bed no more. We just get called up. We just get called up like Batman with the bat signal when the time comes. Because outside of that, it's like, nope, don't touch me. Don't do this. Don't call me. I will call you. Just don't do that. So it really did get to the point where it's like, oh man, I'm a stranger in my own house. Because Jay doesn't sleep in home bed.
No.
I felt that she wasn't going to be that type of child, but it solidified it. Stephanie cannot be away for more than a few seconds. Even now, Jay gets out of her crib. She'll get out of her crib. She doesn't cry anymore. She just walks up and look at mom and be like, where you at? Come on. Come on. I don't know why you even thought to get up. So it's one of me and Stephanie has realized now to even jumpstart intimacy. It's almost like a planning thing now. It's like, hey, you free Tuesday? You want to work? I'm at work too. Hey, I see you after brunch, 12, noonish.
But even with that, like because of what's going on in my head, I guess, even when we have space and opportunity, it seems like there's all this other stuff that we need to get done because, okay, she's only at daycare for 6 hours. I have to get my work done. I have to get the laundry done. What about the kitchen? Is like all this other stuff gets in the way. So part of it is the low libido, but the other part is figuring out how to manage your home and the baby and yourselves as a couple. So we are still figuring it out. We don't have an answer. So if any of you know what to do, I am open to suggestions.
Love it. What about you all, Alicia?
Okay. A lot of what what I would have said is kind of what you guys said, so I won't reiterate for the sake of time. The only difference is, so we do have 2 children together, but my stepson is about to be 13 and he lives with his mom, so I don't have an additional child in the house. But even when he's over, there are just times that it feels like there's just no space for it. But having a child and dealing with postpartum depression and dealing with everything else has forced us to view intimacy wholly, like instead of just the sexual side of it. My husband is probably on the opposite end of the spectrum from most husbands. Like he's not one of those bother me, can we do it all the time people. Like if he's frustrated with me, he doesn't want to have sex. I want to say be intimate. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to do anything. And so I didn't really have to deal with that part. I was probably more of the aggressor. And even in that, it's like, okay, trying to figure out what does intimacy actually mean to us aside from a sexual act, because that's not hard to do. Sometimes there are times where it's like, oh, I don't even know if I can physically do this, but for the most part, just having sex is like, whatever, we can have sex. But we're trying to figure out how to build a connection outside of the act. And I think it's becoming more important the older that I'm getting and the less time that we have with this baby. Like, okay, there are times where wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, it's all we have time for. Get it while you can. Do what you got to do. Everybody's good. But there are other times where I feel it's super necessary to flirt and build up anticipation. Mm-hmm. If we start flirting today and we can't get it until next Sunday, okay, but at least you've built this anticipation for me throughout this time. And that's the biggest thing that we've been trying to focus on since having the baby and currently. My baby is almost 2. I still am physically sore at times from the C-section that I had. So I just hurt sometimes. There's no other way to put it. And so we are just trying to figure out other ways to be intimate and build up as much anticipation as possible so that when it's time, it's as comfortable as it can be, even if it's one of those, he took a nap, you want to run upstairs real quick, because he a cock blocker. He's like, can stay up.
You're like, wait.
The intimate part, I think we're still trying to learn what intimacy was
before the baby,
even before the baby came, because we both were 2 people who, like I said, 2 single people just doing their own thing, and then trying to make this relationship work, then getting married, then having this baby, and going through that time where she was like, I tried to kiss her and anything. Oh, what are you doing? Like she would look at me like I was some type of weirdo that just broke into the house trying to do something to her. I'm just like, but then on the flip side, a couple hours later, like, you don't ever want to have sex with me. Oh, we ain't having sex. I'm just like, whoa, time out. I just tried this. I'm not 19, babe. I'm 35. You think I'm just going to hop up like this? As soon as you look at me, like, oh, I'm ready, babe. Let's do it. Like you said, them days is over. Like I do now, I feel like it does need to be a little more intimate. No, I'm not going to be like on the movies where we just go be like.
Nobody asked for the movies. Nobody asked for the movies.
And start doing all that. No, it's like, let's politic, let's go. I like to do when she's in the kitchen. I'm like, to me, that's sexy. You in there cooking.
That's so aggravating.
I try to come and try to do something while she's in there cooking. Like, you about to cook for me? No, that's sexy, baby.
That's aggravating.
Yeah. But no, it's like, stop. I'll be like, see, I'm trying to be spontaneous like you asked of me. But then it's like.
That's not spontaneous when I'm cooking. So we working on it in closing. We can move on.
Yeah, see?
That's okay too. But while I have y'all, Alicia, what about what advice would you all give new parents? Or that, and what do you think is important to discuss with your partner? Let's start with that one. What do you think is important for y'all to discuss with your partner before the baby arrives? So, new mama getting ready. What kind of conversations you think are important?
You want to start, it looks like. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. My thing is, I would say patience and be gracious. Give yourself some grace. Allow yourself to not do right. You just want to, because you don't know what to do. Like Stephanie said, there's no manual, as just be patient. You might not get it right Monday, but Tuesday, everything flow. Wednesday, everything flow. Thursday, you might have tripped up, but hey, it's all right. Just be patient with yourself and your mate, and I think it'd be all good.
That's cute. I agree with Patience. I definitely agree with Grace. I think an important conversation is also discussing your support system and what that looks like, who that is and what that looks like. It's very easy to assume grandparents are going to do something. It's very easy to assume friends will, but it's like establish who you're comfortable with up front and stick to that. Because even I know sometimes you get tired and it's like, I just need a break. But sometimes you can't enjoy your break if your child is not with somebody you trust. You're going to be thinking about your child the whole time. So figuring out what that care looks like, and then discuss everything, even the ugly. Like, I spent too much time sitting in my room in the dark, like I want to hurt my baby, but I can't tell my husband. Like, say whatever, but say whatever you have to say to get the help that you need, because the longer you let things sit, the more they fester, and then you'll have a bigger problem that could have been avoided with just raw communication. I mean, your spouse or your mate or your partner saw you either cut open or a baby pushed out. You can't get no more real than that. So say what you got to say, and save yourself some headache from still trying to put on some form of I got it together.
Love it. Stephanie, let's start with Kwame. What do you think is important to discuss with your partner before the baby arrives?
My bad. Repeat that question one more time.
What do you think is important to discuss with your partner before baby arrives?
I think it's really important that when you start, before the baby even arrives, is to really get a understanding of just knowing space, knowing give that person space, knowing how to not just be patient with them, but just knowing how to, hey, I guess the best way of knowing when to step back. Knowing when to step back, because I think especially the first thing with me and Stephanie was, especially with the baby, is I did not know how to give her space or how to allow her to get space. And I think as fellas, we don't, we think just because the baby wants to be with the mom and wants to breastfeed and things like that, we also need to know when to, hey, what are some things I need to know, so that way if you ever get frustrated, so that way it doesn't lead to an argument of, well, I needed your help. What is something that, you can give me something, so, give me like a little nose tap or something like that, a signal, something, so that way I know if the baby's getting too much, I can go ahead and tag in and just do it like WWE. I want to be able to know what is our tag team code, so that way the baby gets too much. Because I think with me and Stephanie, we didn't discuss a lot of, like I say, I didn't understand how to be a dad. I don't know how to be a dad. So I don't know how to know when to take that pressure off her. And I think that's something we tried to talk to before the baby got here. Sort of. But yeah, it was like a pass by glance, but I didn't take it serious. Now it's when I was afterwards, it was like, man, we had these conversations. I should have took it serious, man. You gave me a slight manual, and I just like, you know what? I did the man thing, said, bump it, I'll eye it. Wasn't the thing to do. So I think it's like, you really want to talk to that person, because a lot of times, you can't, just speaking from my experience, they'll know, a woman will know when she say, hey, look, if you ever see this, if you see my hand touch this, please step in. Step in. Don't ask no questions. Just step in.
What I find hilarious in this conversation is that we're definitely still learning this process. Because like I said, we're only 17 months in on our first child. So there are still times where, because of we need a bigger bed, because I am still co-sleeping. So he basically never sleeps in the bedroom. So he's like out here in the living room, watching YouTube videos and playing on his game with his headphones on, and Phantasy Star Online with his online friends, and I'm in the bedroom with a screaming baby that's beating me over the head with her socks. And I'm like, why can't you just help me? He's like, oh, I thought you had it. So we're still working out the kinks a little bit.
It's the cues. It's the cues. Because in the same instant, there are times where she's trying to put Jay to sleep, and I'll bust in there to get Jay. She's like, why did you come in here? Why? I'm trying to get her to sleep. Because last time you said I didn't. Look, man, I'm just trying. I'm trying.
So it's like finding some sort of balance. There needs to be, maybe I do need to figure out some kind of bat signal or Morse code or smoke signals or something, because there are times where I am trying to put her to sleep and he'll just bust in thinking I need help, but I didn't need help. And then there's other times where I am trying to put her to sleep, but this ain't going the way I hoped it would go.
I'm not a villain. I'm not a hero, not an anti-hero. I'm just a very backwards person, apparently. Very backwards.
We still learning. We'll figure it out.
Love it.
Look, I'm jumping in as well because I'm going through the same thing. You talk about your first kid. I'm still going through the same thing now. We got our baby like sitting right here in our lap right now. But, you know, sometimes I can hear the baby screaming. And I'm like, this is my moment. I'm going in. I'm going in. And then it's like, as soon as I come in, Chris will give me the eyes like, out. So, you know,
I'm trying. Look, I see what you're saying, but if I act, is it the wrong action?
Right.
It's like I be sitting there like, Jesus, give me a sign. Give me the right side. Do I jump in, jump out? I don't know.
Right. So it's a work in progress over here as well.
We're baby 4, so you know
so it doesn't get better.
For me, I'm better than I was.
Absolutely. Oh, Jasmine, let's have your hubby answer this. So what do you think is important to discuss when you're with your partner before baby arrives?
The very first thing that we discussed was parenting styles.
Yes.
I was raised Southern Baptist at that, and then I always told, do what I say, not as I do. And so I wanted to clear the opposite for my children. Jasmine grew up in a very open home, so that's something that was her. So our parenting styles clash sometimes. So communicating with her I can't be the only one being a disciplinary in the house. I can't be over there, get down, stop doing, hey, come here, stop. I can't be the only one doing all that. So I need your help. And then also, we actually kind of flip roles with put the kids to sleep, because I put my daughter to sleep, and then she'll text me, and because I'm putting her to sleep, and she's going to sleep, I'm going to text her back to the room. She's sleepy. I'm like, she was just that. And now she's awake. So that was the very first thing that we discussed. And then, I can't remember who said it, but where our kids stays, because I have this huge thing about letting our kids stay overnight at someone's house. Because there's some weirdos out there, family or not, and I don't want to go to jail, because if I go to jail, who's going to take care of my kids? So I'm like, I understand we need a break, but I don't trust anyone with our kids. So those are two things that we're always discussing, we're always talking about, because we're tired. And so how can we get a break? And then just talking about any and everything, no matter how hard the topic may be. After our son was born, he was like 8 months. No, this was recently. This was like 2 months ago, where it was before his birthday. So I was really struggling with the low libido on her behalf, and so I'm like, yo, like I need some type of attention. I don't care what it is. Pat me on my back or something, or I'm gonna find somebody else to do it. And I had to be honest with her about it. Like, I understand you're a mother and you take care of the house and everything like that, but I need some attention too. I need some loving too. So just give me something to work with. I don't care what it is, you know. So that was something we had to always and discuss and talk about to make sure that we're not only our kids taken care of, but our relationship taken care of.
So with when we became parents, we went into this knowing that we were going to breastfeed first off. And me, I was always kind of like a people pleaser. You know, I listened to what other people say, and he'd be like, "No, I don't care what they say. Like you going breastfeed these babies. Like, you know, you could do it whatever you want to do it. You can do it however long you want to do it." Because even now, because I am tandem with my daughter and my son, you know, I get the whole backlash like, "Oh, she's too big." He's like, "Well, if you don't have a problem with it, I don't have a problem with it. You know, those are your boobs. You do what you want. Like, you know, you're sustaining our children." So he's been like my number one like fan in regards to supporting me, and you know, just like how the public perceives our our children's breastfeeding relationship with me, because I'm always like, "Well, this person said this," and he's like, "I don't care what they say. Like, if they got something to say, I'll tell them they need to mind their own business." And he's like, "That's my family, that's your family, that's anybody. If they got something wrong with it, they could go in the next room." Like that's just always been him from jump. The Candid in regards to that, because I would always be kind of leery or nervous to be doing, you know, breastfeeding my daughter, you know, at a wedding. And he's like, "Well, she was hungry. Like, you know, who has something to say? Like, I'll go tell them that they can mind their own business." And that was really him. And that helped our relationship. That helped our relationship because I felt supported, and I felt like, hey, like, as long as he's good, you know, we are on board together with this, especially with the breastfeeding, because, you know, after 6 months, I was ready to throw in the towel with my daughter, like, "Hey, I'm done." And he's like, "No, you know what, this is fine. Let's just keep going." You know, I was pregnant with my son, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to keep going, you could keep going. You know, I'm not going to tell you when to stop. If you feel like you want to stop, then baby, you stop. We'll work through this together." But with my son, he was like, you know, he came out, he helped me latch him. Like it was one of those things. And he's been like 100% gung-ho with the whole breastfeeding thing, and, you know, being a support. And that's a big, huge thing. You know, if y'all family's gonna breastfeed, y'all have to be in this thing together, because it's both of y'all in this. It's not just mommy, you know, losing sleep. It's not just mommy going through the whole, we're going through the physical part of this, but daddy is there and he's going through it with us. And if you have daddy there and he's supporting you, that is huge, 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 huge. And it makes your journey a whole lot easier.
So I'm gonna say that she hyping me up like I'm this really, really great. I mess up all the time. I'm just gonna
We all mess up.
But I can be overly aggressive, and I realized that. And so she had to be like, "No, it's fine, it's fine." And so it took literally her reeling me back in, like, "No, it's fine, it's handled, it's good," with everything with our kids and in our relationship, because I just, at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that they all were good, no matter what happened. So she did a lot of reeling me in, a lot. So
yeah.
So I think that's actually a really good. I know my wife's supposed to be like moderating this, but here's the question. Here's the question. So we get this asked a lot just from our family as well. We talk about breastfeeding and how important it is, and we've had some really good support from our parents, which made it easier, even when you have outside people throwing their opinions in, saying, "Well, that baby's a year old. You still breastfeeding? Why are you doing that?" So again, and it took us, so I think not too long, but took us a little time to kind of build that confidence within ourselves to say, wait a second. Again, thanks for your opinion, but this is our family. We know what's best for our family. So, with that said, I'm a just list to the guys. It's just how.
Well, and the ladies, but the ladies, maybe the ladies too.
This is guys, okay, ladies as well.
Yeah.
But how are you helping support each other through this whole breastfeeding journey, right? So. I guess Jasmine, you all kind of already answered that one. Maybe I'll go over to Stephanie.
Because it's a lot. I mean,
it is. I mean, it's a big deal. You got a lot of things happening all at once.
Plus the feeding, baby is with me all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for helping close that out.
So how did you support me, babe?
Doing everything else. By doing everything else. So from the cooking, the cleaning, and just making sure that, whatever she needed, I can get it versus her have to get up and disturb the baby in the feeding zone. So it was, being a butler.
And
at
a
that
maid.
point. And a maid.
And Postmates.
And
Grubhub. And chauffeur.
Man of many hats at that point. Man of many hats. So it was that point, just knowing that, all the things that she can't do at that moment in time. That's what we shine. All right, look, I can't give you 2 gourmet, but I'm gonna hit you with this grill, some ribs right quick. This fried chicken. You finna eat. But I don't know about the shrimp though. I don't know.
It's because you're allergic.
Yeah. So just basically handling the day-to-day mundane tasks.
Yeah.
And just, help her just stay on track on just feeding and, and being supportive as much as possible. Even when she wasn't, when she had to pump, I just made sure that, hey, you might not have had a good batch here, but there's a lot of factors that could have been in play. So don't stress on what you couldn't do today. Later on, tomorrow, you never know. Baby girl gonna feed. She won't eat regardless. She ready. She ready. So.
I would say as far as how spouses can support, like you said, do everything else. That's extremely helpful. It's also super helpful that he's on board in the first place. I think the simplest way I can say it is to know your role. Like, you have to know your place in this situation. It's not, if I'm super blunt about it, that the spouse can't really tell you whether or not you're supposed to breastfeed. They can't determine when you should stop either. That's our choice. And knowing that, number one, is super, super key. Because once you understand that it is not your choice whether or not I stop or start breastfeeding, then your next step is to just support whatever I decide I feel like doing. If I want to breastfeed her until 2nd grade, your job is to be like, you go, girl. You breastfeed that 10-year-old. I do not recommend that, but that's the job title. Like, you're having that support system is super important. Making sure everybody else around your circle understands that this is what we are going to do. This is our decision. This is where we are. So being able to check your family when they're like, oh, she's still breastfeeding, super important. Making sure that other things are handled, super important. You are the key to everything else going right.
For me, I guess what helped me be knowledgeable about the whole breastfeeding is, like I said before, I work for the state of Georgia, so I work with the WIC office a lot. So I work with a lot of breastfeeding counselors. So they really did put me on free game. They put me on free game the whole time. So, way before me and Stephanie even met, way for that, I had a good understanding of breastfeeding. I didn't have the full picture, but I had good guidance. So as it was, like I said, working in the WIC office and learning, I didn't know there was a difference between breastfeeding and formula. I thought, it is what it is at that point. But then when you start learning the facts and you start getting statistics, you start learning like, okay, right. I don't want my daughter on that. I don't want my first child to have it. When everybody decide to have a kid, she's gonna be she's gonna be right there from the tap. You're gonna go ahead and feed as long as you want. And just the difference I seen in Jay's development versus, and like I said, this is all just my perspective from kids I helped raise and stuff like that, and they was on formula. I said, you know what, it is a difference. And I had a friend who basically had the same thing. He didn't know if he wanted his child to be breastfed. He really said he didn't. And then after I told him, I just gave him my opinion. Sometimes I think that's what most of us fellas who don't have the knowledge on it, especially like I said, for new fathers who come into it, you just giving your opinion is the best thing. They can take it, and they can take it or they don't have to. It's really up to them at that point.
All right, so we're gonna shift over. Actually, really good points in that one as well. But I guess we're gonna shift to who has Alicia.
Your hubby.
I never realized I didn't hit it. Go ahead.
Well, for me, I just I wing it. I just learn as we go, because I understand dealing with that depression. So many things can change from day to day. No, we're talking about supporting the wife while she's breastfeeding. That's what we're talking about. She didn't know the question until she didn't pay attention in class. That's what always got to save her, But it's all right. I told her, look, I can't be Jesus, but I can be, like my man said, the priest of the home. Baby. I can save you that point.
Stay focused.
But I just try to wing it, try to do whatever I can, washing the dishes, trying to doing laundry, cleaning the bathroom, picking up after her, because sometimes I get pissed off, man. If she doesn't clean up after herself or the baby, like, you just let him make this mess, but then understand what happened, made a mess, now he on the tit, and next thing you know, it's over with. It could be night time. So the mess is there that I got to look at the mess like, man, I got to go to work, clean the house. I can't keep doing all this, man. I'm like, man, but I understand this is it's for a season. It's part of the process, man. I got to get out my own way and stop being so selfish, bullheaded, That's it. It's being selfless, I would say, is the number one thing, man. Just be selfless.
This is recorded. I can go back and play it, and you said that.
You gotta find it, man. You gotta find it. You might get deleted.
All right. So yeah, he's been supportive, like doing all the other things, even with me being a stay-at-home mom. Like he just explained, he would get frustrated sometimes, like, when you're at home all day with the baby, what are you doing? We had enough arguments about that for him to stop asking me that question. Because what I'm doing is being with his baby all day. That's what I'm doing. And that's a lot. And as far as breastfeeding, like, no one in my family breastfed for a long time. Most of them didn't. And so it's just us supporting each other. Like, he knows that I want to continue. He knows that I don't plan to stop. Even when he makes his jokes sometimes about, you're going to have your side dude in my bed until he's 5. Like, maybe, hopefully not, but we'll see. But it's just us coming to an agreement. And even if we disagree in the background, like, that's nobody's business when they ask questions about us breastfeeding. It's like, yeah, this is what we're doing until we stop. Mind your business. Or would you like some?
See you want
For sure. I know for us, I think Ken talked about it, but I didn't add my 2 cents. It's really, it's supporting me in my decision. Our baby just turned 3, and guess what? I'm still breastfeeding, and you got a problem? You know what I mean? Don't, mind your breast. My breast, my business, right? So, but just understanding the health benefits of it all, just go far beyond just age 1. And I think that's first and foremost my decision, and why we wanted to breastfeed all of our babies as long as they decided to. And that's just been my philosophy. But I just appreciate his support and the dishes and the cleaning, because even now, thank goodness I get a moment, I get a moment's rest when he's like, oh, Chris, can you do something? I can't, because I'm breastfeeding right now. So, whoops. But yeah, I'm very grateful and thankful to have a spouse like that. But final question as we round and end Black Breastfeeding Week, which I think has been phenomenal. My question to you is, have you enjoyed this? I feel like potentially we should do this again sometime and have these quarterly couple talks about parenting and all of that. So I hope you've enjoyed it, but let's as we end the live, I want to just go around and we'll start with Jasmine and your hubby and just talk about what you've enjoyed about this discussion. Would you like to get back together? And then your final thoughts about Black Breastfeeding Week.
Me first? Okay. Honestly, I love this conversation. I love talking to other couples about breastfeeding. Talk to those who are pregnant, and I have a lot of men who come to me like, "You like breastfeeding?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, what do I expect? And I'm like, just be there. Like, just so to have these conversations with those, and get certain information out that you don't necessarily know to ask before. It's important because you're going to encounter a lot of things that you don't know that you're going to encounter. So I feel like this conversation is very much needed for everyone.
Oh, sorry. All right. What was the question? I'm sorry. What was the question?
Did you enjoy this?
Oh yeah, I love this. This was awesome because I got, we're kind of all going through the same things, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, it's not just me, it's not just us going through this or that. Gain a little insight from others, like, hey, you dealt with this, how'd you deal with this? And having the candid conversation was pretty cool. Like, yeah, we're not alone in this. Oh, I think they froze.
I love it.
Oh, are we back?
I think you froze. Can't see.
I froze. Can you hear me?
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you, Wi-Fi. All right. Stephanie, final thoughts. Did you enjoy it? Any final thoughts on Black Breastfeeding Week?
So I feel like our connection is it.
Alicia, we'll go with you. I think Stephanie dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Totally enjoyed the conversation. It's always nice to know that you're not the only one going through stuff. I think these conversations in our community are very much necessary because so much stuff is like, don't tell our business. What happens in our house stays in our house. But it's like, okay, whether you tell them or not, people know something wrong with you, so you might as well talk about it and might as well get some solutions. I would totally be open to doing it again. I would do this for a living if I could. I love candid group conversations about relevant stuff. I actually envy Jada's Red Table Talk. I'm like, I don't have her following, but I was so do Red Table Talk. I think it's dope. As far as Black Breastfeeding Week, I think it's amazing that it is a week. It is a thing. I think it's dope that we are getting back to what we originally did. It's crazy. Breastfeeding was taboo in our community when we were the ones doing it to begin with. It was really a thing because of us. So it's crazy how they were able to brainwash us like that, but I'm glad we're getting back on track. I'm glad for the group and getting so much information to be able to share with other people. I think I'm a breastfeeding expert now. I get on people's nerves and I don't even care. Like, I'm gonna keep telling them about it. You thoughts?
Look at that. You about to cut me off. Y'all see she was in. But yeah, I like the conversation just to see that I'm not the only man going through these things that felt like the side dude. So it was cool with me. And I definitely wouldn't mind being able to share this wisdom that we have gained by going through this stuff. You know, it's a beautiful thing to pass it on to our people.
Absolutely.
Wakanda forever, man.
I know that's right.
For real.
I just want to thank everybody. It was an amazing time. We have our Daddy Can Do group, Jane, the moderator of the group. So you all will be in good hands. And then our breastfeeding support group for Black moms, our Black Families Do Breastfeed page. It's just a wealth of information that's fact-based to help all of our mamas. And the dads group helps the dads be supportive for their spouses and for themselves. So it's a place to go and talk and vent so we don't have to hear it. But thank you all. Take care.
All right, take care.
Okay, the live stream did stop. Wait just a second.